Hello, this is Alice Wheaton. And what I'd like to do is talk to you today about leadership strengths. In another webinar, we'll be talking about leadership weaknesses. And you might think, well, a leadership strength and a weakness is just the opposite of each other. And they could be, but there's also an extra dimensions to those. So when it comes to being a leader, it's not necessarily about leading others. Being a leader, first and foremost, is about the ability to lead oneself. It's about the ability to make good decisions for ourselves and then to be able to teach others how to make good decisions for them. A lot of people have had the wonderful, wonderful experience with being involved with a great leader. When I was a nurse, I had lots of great leaders, lots of good head nurses and supervisors and so on. I had one, when I went back to university, I worked full-time and went to university full-time, and the supervisor and I had an agreement in that whenever I needed to work, if possible, she would give me the shift. But on the other hand, if she needed someone to fill a position and she was in a crunch, that even if I was going to have to be up for 18 hours or so, that I would help her out. So we had a collaborative experience going together. And you know what? Because she was intent on creating a win-win, then I would have jumped over the moon for her. I was so impressed. And then when I left nursing and I went to work at Xerox, my first manager was Bill Irwin, who is in his 70s, looks exactly like he did when he was in his 30s. And, you know, and he was a fantastic leader. He was the first man in the branch to hire a saleswoman. And he took that chance. And in the process of taking that chance, he demonstrated what a lot of leaders can't demonstrate, which is an eagerness to change and go against the crowd. Many people in leadership positions don't want to do anything that's going to risk their upward mobility, and that was not the case. He recognized a strength in me, and he decided to go for that, and then having made the decision, he completely and totally believed in rewarding the competent. And so the more I succeeded, the more freedom he gave me and the more resources he gave me. And I'm sure that some people might have thought that I was his favorite, but I wasn't. The thing is that I always outperformed. I did have a nasty habit, however, of sandbagging orders. So if I knew if I'd met my month's quota and we were paid between 10 to 20% and so on, and I knew if putting in the order wasn't going to make me any extra commission because it, you know, was in that gray area where, you know, the break needed to have $10,000 more before I got to the next level, I might not put that in that month. And so if there was a sales manager's contest, they would come to me and say, come on, open up your briefcase. I need some orders to win my contest this month. And so I always would, even if it wasn't apparently in the moment good for me. And so when someone is a good leader, they are able to inspire and influence their team to be on the lookout for them as well. Because a lot of people think that in leadership situations, it's the leader that looks out for the person that reports to them. But in a great leadership relationship, what happens is that the person reporting will be just as dedicated to being on the side of their leader as the leader is on their part. So it's a high degree of mutuality, I guess I should say. So this is what I know for sure, that if one of those areas is missing, it's really difficult to be a phenomenal, noteworthy leader. So leaders need to inspire, they need to educate, and they need to challenge. And so each of those skills has an entirely different set of competencies. And so what would inspire look like? Inspire is someone who is inspirational is someone who can take a huge vision. You know, think of Martin Luther King. Think of Obama. Whether you like Obama or not, he was able to inspire a whole generation of people that had never been inspired before to go and vote. Mayor Nenshi here in the city of Calgary, Mayor Nenshi he doesn't have voters. He has devoted fans. Oftentimes when I go to another city, they'll say to me, you know, Alice, you have our mayor and we have yours. But Mayor Nenshi is very visible. He inspires. He inspired Calgary to react to the flood that had everyone involved in one way or another. And so he didn't inspire by, you know, simply sending out his communicating via technology. He inspired by being on the front line himself. He inspired his team by willing to break the rules. There is a rule, and I'm not going to get the exact timing now, but city workers can't work for more than, say, 12 hours straight or 16 hours straight. But there was a state of emergency, really. And so he said, okay, guys, I'm breaking the rules. We should not be wading in that water right now because there might be debris there, but it has to be done. And so they were willing to do that because they were inspired by their leader. A great leader educates, and they can educate because they've spent the time educating themselves. You can't transfer something to someone else that you don't have. And so if a leader has taken the time to be able to optimize their own processes, if they know how to do better and give better and go to the next level, then they can teach someone else. If they can't teach that, then they can't educate. And of course, the other sign of a great leader is challenge. When Obama was running first as a president of the United States, he would say, come on, it's ready for a change. Aren't you ready for change? Aren't you someone that can stare prejudice in the eyes and stare it down? Aren't you someone that can do something that no one else has ever done? Vote for a black president? You know, he issued challenge, and people took him up on that. And so that's what a good leader is about. It's not about confrontation, though. Challenge is not about confrontation. Challenge is about being able to see the big picture and be scared witless that it can't be done, but then asking the team to dig deep where they've never gone before and get that daunting task done, to get Calgary back on its proven track. And you know, and so the Stampede went on, and we're known the world over for the Stampede. And so typical City of Calgary and the mayor had a great sense of humor, so they had T-shirts done that said, come hell or high water. You know, and so a little bit of humor and the ability to make funny stuff goes a long way too. Some people in leadership positions might be intimidated by potential in an employee. But a great leader is someone that knows that the person they're mentoring might one day become their mentor. And so a good leader is not intimidated by someone's brilliance. If they've got someone that is more skilled, more brilliant, more competent than they are on the team, and they can see a rising star, they're going to just take that person and just work with them even more. But some people would be intimidated by that and do their best to sabotage them, because Some people, when you say something good about someone else, they interpret it as saying less about them. You know, risk-taking is scary for a lot of us. And before we can take a risk, we have to be really comfortable with fear. And so what a good leader does, a good leader is able to create the safest environment possible so that the employees will take a risk, and if they make a mistake, that they're not intimidated or punished. As I understand it, when Edison was inventing the light bulb, it took about 10,000 tries for him to succeed. And the story goes is that he gave one of his lab workers to take the light bulb in and plug it in, but on the way he tripped and fell. And so then Edison went to work creating the next one. And most leaders would then give it to someone else to take across to plug it in, but no, to screw it in. But no, what happened is that Edison apparently gave it to the exact same lab worker. Now that is great leadership, because of course the person given that second chance is going to really, really, really work hard not to mess it up this time. I imagine that that worker was pretty nervous, and that was a long trip from his workbench to the socket, wherever he plugged it in. But it happened, and as a result of that, there's lights behind me and there's lights in front of me. And so, you know, what happens is that when someone makes a mistake and we don't challenge them, then they actually become better employees. We have been told as children, you've got to do it and do it right the first time, and nothing could be further from the truth. We have to do it the best we can each time. And if the first time, if our improvement can only be 1% of the time, well then great leaders see that as something that is laudable. So great leaders know that they're responsible for the whole group, and they can make unpopular decisions. The need to be liked is pretty common, and one of the reasons is that back in caveman days, if we were not liked by the chief, then what happened is that we were relegated to the back of the cave where the smoke gathered and where it was damp and cold, and we died, and our family died with us. And so survival is not just about the fittest. Survival is also about how you can be part of the crowd and protected by the bigger group. And so a boss, a good leader, knows that sometimes they have to cut someone from the group, and that's a really tough decision. But if the whole group is being compromised by one brilliant, creative, but someone who is really, you know, a bad apple, as it were, or someone who is self-centered, or someone who rides roughshod over the rest of the group, their brilliance and their capabilities are outshone by their slovenliness or their meanness or their aggressiveness, whatever the case, then that tough decision has to be made. And a good leader will make a decision and even face being very unpopular in order to do that. A good leader loves to promote. And, you know, imagine having a leader that recommends one of its employees for a position that is either a line position to him or even slightly higher. You know, that's confidence. But an insecure person won't make anyone look good at their own, just because they're afraid that it's at their own expense. But that's someone that's coming from fear. They think there's enough in the world for everyone, but not for them. And so someone who comes from that, they're going to be really stingy with their praise as well as stingy with their encouragement and their promotions. And so observe your decisions. Observe whether or not you want to be expansive and make it easy for someone to succeed, or if you want to hold them back. And as easy as it is to identify that, it's much more difficult to change it. Nothing happens until we think about something first. And you know, when we're in meetings and someone are flying off in left field, sometimes it looks like there's not that many great ideas floating around. But you know, a good leader can connect the dots. And a good leader will have a parking lot so that ideas that are different, that are not in alignment at the current moment, will be executed on, or at least documented. Apparently, Apple, the criteria at Apple was, we want something that is highly functional and really, really good looking. And so now Apple has multifunctionary teams so that you don't just have IT engineers, you don't just have computer scientists. They have now graphic designers on their team so that their ideas are also considered. You know, there is an old Jewish saying that says, if everyone pulled in the same direction, the earth would fall over. And so there's an author called Edward de Bono, and he was really, really popular maybe 20 years ago, 20 to 30 years ago. And he has a book called 5 Thinking Hats, or maybe it's 6 Thinking Hats. Anyway, and so he assigns a different color for the different people in a meeting. And he says every single meeting should have someone wearing a black hat. And the black hat person is the one who looks at the ideas put forward in a contrarian position. They look at ideas and say, well, why would this work? Or let's do something counter to that. He worked with some industrial companies in the United States, in England, and he discovered that a lot of the pollution was caused because the intake of water into those manufacturing companies was upstream from the output. And so he created the challenge and the suggestion, which was implemented by several manufacturing companies, is that the manufacturing own intake of water had to be downstream of their pollution that they were putting out into the streams. And that made a huge difference to the environmental safety of the manufacturing of the company they work for. So that's upside down thinking. And yet so few people are encouraged to be upside down thinkers. They're seen as being negative. They're seen as being naysayers and disruptive and not really productive. But, you know, upside down thinking or critical thinking is part of what brings research, give researchers efficacy. If they're not able to look at why a drug or a process won't work, chances are they can't find out why it will work. When it comes to being managers and good leaders, because there's a big difference between a manager and a leader. A manager manages tasks, but a leader manages people. And so leaders that are people-oriented are much able to engage in conversations. They're much able to be responsive. They're much more able to have someone on their team who are emotive, for instance, and create a space for that. Leaders who are only task-oriented pretty soon become, well, they oftentimes are passed over by less technical, less knowledgeable, less brilliant people for the people that are more people-oriented. So the idea is to have a combination of both. You know, one of the fastest ways to become a people-oriented person, to supplement your task-oriented person, is to ask questions about your team, to develop a working knowledge of them. And it doesn't have to be really intimate. It could be about their interest. It could be about their what their dreams are for the future. And so it's about showing interest on a consistent basis. Maybe not every day, but maybe every 2-3 days, you stop by someone's desk and you ask a question or two about their project, ask them what the challenges are, if they need your help, and of course, giving a pat on the back, giving acknowledgement. And a highly task-oriented leader might feel uncomfortable doing that. But man, the power behind having a people person and a task-oriented person combine the two skills, it's unstoppable. Also, it makes you appear to be much more trustworthy, and people want to follow trustworthy people more than, of course, they do someone that they don't know. And we've talked about this area, balancing concern with people with concern for people with concerns for production. There's typically 4 quadrants of business: the top line, which is new business coming in, and then the bottom line, which is how much you get to keep and how much you get to reinvest. And then the other one is production. And the production are involved with quality and efficiency. The 4th quadrant is about people. And the 2 concerns there are skills and morale. And so if you have a technical manager who is task-oriented, then your quality and efficiency are going to go down because the skills and morale of the people will go down. If you're simply a task manager, then the people who have high skills, they'll leave. They know their worth, and they'll leave and find another job at a competitor's even. But if you've got but then what happens is that you may have someone with high morale but low skills, and then your efficiency and quality is going to be compromised. So it really behooves a leader to take some time and understand the connection between quality and efficiency and skills and morale. And the skills and morale can be greatly enhanced if the leader has the sense to connect on a personal level as well as a technical level. So when words are backed up by actions, that's called we're accountable. There's a saying that I like, which is, my words are my words, my feelings are my feelings, but my actions are my life. So my words are my words, my feelings are my feelings, but my actions are my life. And what that means, of course, is that you can't talk about being a leader and then not back that up by your actions, because, well, eventually someone is going to declare that the emperor has no clothes. Being a leader is not necessarily all about being a people person. Being a leader is about understanding the organizational objectives. So if your organizational objectives are about attracting, always having a team that's heavily weighted to the positive deviance of the group, meaning that if your job is to have a top leveling all the time, then that's the goal of the organization. But what happens is that if you don't provide the training enough to the goals are reached, then all the talk in the world won't be of any value. We have to have the balance. We have to have the talk without, what is the expression? Words without deeds are like seeds on infertile soil. So words without deeds are like seeds on an infertile soil. And so that's the dance that leaders need to be dancing all the time. It's really tempting as a leader to be in denial. I work with a lot of sales leaders. And sometimes there is a sales rep there on the team who's been there for years and has been an underperformer for years. And they find it very, very difficult to make a change, and I understand that. I understand why it's difficult to make a change when someone that you know very well, especially if they have a pleasing personality. My research shows that underperformers on a sales team stay for 18 months unless they have a pleasing personality, at which time they stay a long time, 3 months, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And so a great leader understands that if they keep an underperformer that is compromising the morale and the skills of the rest of the team, it's tough to invite someone, as one of my clients say, it's tough to free up other people's future, tough to let them go. But if there is someone on your team that does not match up to the expectations again and again and again, that person either needs training or they need a new career. And if all the training and intervention that you try to do does not work, then the leadership step would be to redirect that person into a new career. It might be within the same company. But keeping an underperformer on a team, not just sales team, is not good leadership. I want to thank you very much for being with me today. Being a leader is tough. And it's a thankless job. It's much easier to it's much easier to be actually part of a team without line responsibility. But most people do want to flex their leadership muscles and see where it takes them. And so in order to do that, it's really important to be able to balance the task with the people and have the people be happy to perform the task for you. Thank you for being with me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Alice Wheaton, alice@alicewheaton.com. Bye for now.